Hey friends, so we are back with another video, and today we are talking about setting boundaries just in life in general, because obviously this could go for your business, this could go for your personal life, this could go for your job, just in general. One of the things that I've learned was, for me when I was younger, it was hard for me to set boundaries because I felt like, or people would make me feel as though I was like the bad guy. So I could say, hey, you know what, don't do that to me, I don't like that. And they would like fall out and act a fool, like I just said the worst thing that I could ever say to them, right? And I had to realize that that was gaslighting. And those were people that didn't need to be around me anyway, because if doing what is right for you offends someone else, if taking care of you offends someone else, those are not your people to begin with. So as usual, I am going to let these next couple of TikToks play, and then I'm going to come back at the end with my own story time and commentary.
I'm in my first healthy relationship with a woman, and one thing y'all have to know is that it is okay to have boundaries. I told y'all once before, when me and my girlfriend first started dating, she set boundaries and the tone really quick. So it was either I respect it or it simply was not going to be a us. When there's no boundaries set, whether it's early on in the dating stage or in the relationship phase, it gives a lot of free range, almost too much free range, because your partner can do something that makes you feel uncomfortable, and it really wouldn't matter because the boundaries were never set. What it is, a lot of people are not used to implementing boundaries, let alone having their partner express to them what their boundaries are. Because when boundaries are set, it really can make the situation uncomfortable, but it's not always harmful. It actually can be very beneficial. If you or your partner had a boundary set in place with a family member or another friend, and they cross that boundary, that will probably make you uncomfortable or upset. It's the same thing in a relationship. You will want your partner to be able to come to you and express to you how they're feeling without it causing friction or an argument. Just because your partner may set a boundary does not mean they're not into you anymore, they're acting a certain way towards you. Change your perspective and view it as, this is actually creating structure for us to be able to communicate, for us to grow together. Boundaries are really meant to be beneficial. And remember, it's you and your partner versus the situation, not you versus your partner.
If you ever wanted to know who was truly there for you and not just what you could do for them, set boundaries. The moment you set boundaries, you weed out the counterfeits. People who are just around to get whatever you're willing to give for nothing in return are going to leave the moment you set boundaries. They don't like hearing no. They don't like hearing that you have boundaries and you have a price list, because they weren't trying to pay anyway. They're going to leave. The people who stay are your people. So if you ever wanted to know who is really for me, who are these people really my people? Are they here just because of what I can do for them? Or are they here because they really love me? Set boundaries, know your limits, and communicate assertively. And I promise you, you are going to get rid of the people who are not really there for you. Trust me, it is scientifically proven, and I'm the scientist. Okay? They're going to leave. Set boundaries and also stand firm in them. Because think about it. Does Gucci lower their prices because some people can't afford it? No. If you can't afford the price, then there's other options with lower prices. That's not to say that anybody is less than. We all have different needs, different boundaries. But for what they're able to afford, what they're willing to give, what they have the capacity for, there's other options. Don't lower your prices or adjust anything because they can afford it. If I can't afford to go in Saks Fifth, they're not going to put the whole store on sale for me to be able to go and shop. No, go to Macy's. Simple.
You cut me off because I was no longer that person that you can rely on and constantly bring all of your trauma to me. I didn't want to be that emotional cushion anymore. That was the boundaries that I set. So I stopped taking those phone calls at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I stopped listening to the same problems you were having with the same guy because you wanted to complain and vent, but there was no actual actions within you. And it was kind of pulling me in and sucking me in sometime. So there were moments where I realized I was a bad friend. And there were moments where I realized I was more of the friend and I didn't need to be in that.
And we're talking setting boundaries again. When you let a person slide once, they will think they are at a water park. Do you hear me? You see, there are certain kind of people out there who take advantage of you, right? Because you're a kind person, you have a pure heart, but let them slide once with doing something that you're uncomfortable with, that you're not okay with, where you feel disrespected, no matter if it's very minute and small or if it's large. Regardless of what it is, if you let a person slide once, that is you teaching them on how to treat you. Okay? Setting boundaries is about what you are willing to tolerate and what you are not willing to tolerate. Your negotiables and your non-negotiables, okay? So when you set a boundary, that's letting that person know, non-negotiable. There's no debating it. I am not okay with that. No. That's what setting a boundary is. Many people don't set boundaries because they feel like they have to be so boisterous and mean and aggressive and tough. And no. And honestly, growing up, that's what made it so hard for me to set boundaries, because I wasn't a mean-spirited person. I'm a pure-hearted person. I'm a kind person. I mean well by everyone, genuine. So it was hard for me to be mean to people, because it's like the reason why I would say yes when I wanted to say no is because I didn't know I was people-pleasing, because I didn't want to be mean. I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Understand something. That is you prioritizing other people and their feelings and neglecting your own. You see, when you do things like this, it's a disservice to yourself. You lack self-worth, self-value, self-love, okay? Also, when you do this, when you say yes, when you really want to say no, you create a war within yourself. It affects your mental health, because all you can contemplate and think about is how you wanted to say no and you're not okay with this, or you're uncomfortable. And here's the thing. You have to set boundaries within yourself. It starts with yourself, your own self-respect, okay? So, for example, if you say, I want to start working out. I'm going to start working out on Tuesday. Tuesday rolls around and you make excuses and you don't go work out. See, that is you not respecting yourself. That's you not keeping your own word. So when you don't keep your own word with yourself, what happens is that is what sets the tone with how you allow others to treat you. When you don't keep your word with yourself, the people around you, the people in your life notice that. And that teaches them on how to treat you also. And that's a lot of the reason why you accept excuses from other people, or when people don't keep their word with you, you allow it, and you quickly and always easily forgive. And you don't say anything because you don't even keep the word with yourself. So you have to value yourself by keeping your word, doing little things like, if you say you're going to make your bed every morning, make that a priority to do so. If you say you're going to the gym, make it a priority to do so. Whatever you put your mind to and say that you want to do, keep the word within yourself. Keep your own word. Stand on business with you. So when it comes to people doing something that you don't like, understand you do not have to be mean, aggressive, and loud. You can simply say, I am not okay with that. Or no, I don't like it. I'm not okay with that. I don't agree with that. You can be calm. And the thing is, just because a person is loud does not mean they're tough. Does not mean they're strong and bad. Do you hear me? Being loud and aggressive and hostile. No, it's not necessary. You can stand on business by being calm, looking people in the eye and calmly saying, I am not okay with that. Do you hear me? So no more letting things slide. Like I said, it doesn't matter how small it is. If you're not okay with that, do not let it slide. No, I'm not okay with that. Because that is teaching people on how to treat you. You teach people how to treat you by no longer allowing things to slide.
So when you set a boundary comes with a consequence. So if I say to you, my boundary is, please do not yell at me. I don't like when you communicate with me and you raise your voice. If you yell at me, the consequence is I'm going to stop talking or communicating with you 100%. Like, I'm not going to answer your phone calls anymore. I'm going to remove myself from this relationship. That's my consequence. And without that, then I just prefer you not to do that action. But without a consequence, that's not a boundary. I said, I've been having preferences all my life.
That's all I have is preferences. I don't have boundaries.
Because there were never consequences for it.
I'm going to allow you to do something over and over again. But I haven't told you if you continue to do this, there would be a disconnect. I don't have that because it's the level of people pleasing.
I'm afraid that if I tell you what the consequence is, then you're going to be okay with my absence. Yeah. And because I struggled with abandonment issues, I'm willing to put up with your action even though it's harming me.
The older that I get, the more I understand how important it is to have boundaries, because people will play in your face until the day you die if you let them. And the worst part about it is that after you hit like that 25-year mark, you can't blame that shit on nobody but yourself. You have to take full accountability. And I don't know about y'all, but I can't stand when shit is my motherfucking fault. Like, you mean to tell me I have to take so much accountability to the point where I might have to dig deep into my childhood trauma and figure out what it is that my mom and dad did or said to me when I was younger that makes me allow people to treat me like shit and walk all over me in my adult life? Who the fuck has time for that?
Boundaries are your best friend, especially when you have a big heart. God told me recently, he said the reason you constantly have to keep on blocking people and cutting people off is because you don't have boundaries. You haven't understood and learned to grasp the concept of giving people limits to their access of you. You love somebody or you like somebody, so you love them and you just let them into your whole world. You disclose everything that you got in your hand too soon. You become friends with people too soon. You give your body away too soon. You don't give people boundaries, therefore, they don't even know when they are crossing them. You hear what I'm saying? So the bigger you are at heart, that's the bigger your boundaries should be.
You just got to set boundaries for yourself and be like, yo, I'm not going to be a people pleaser in any way, shape, or form. And man, honestly, if my boundaries, cause somebody to feel offended, then that's the whole point of having the boundary in the first place. Like, you're upset with me because I'm placing a boundary for my peace of mind? Yeah. Nah, I don't need you in my life to begin with.
Those boundaries that you set, and they gonna disturb some people. And I'm learning that now, because back in the day, I really didn't have any boundaries. I allowed people to come in and out of my life as they please. And that's really because I didn't have any self-awareness. Self-awareness comes along with discernment, and it comes along with growth and healing and, creating a life that you want for yourself. And I'm realizing that when I did not have boundaries, people treated me any kind of way. And unfortunately, a few of those people are still not aligning with the boundaries that I have set for myself. And those people have to go. Do not apologize for setting boundaries. Do not apologize for wanting something better for yourself, because understand, if a person cannot respect your boundaries or respect what you are doing with your life to get to the next level, or just to feel safe in your own space, in your own mental, if they can't respect that, they need to go expeditiously. I'm not apologizing. Because me apologizing for setting my boundaries is me admitting that I'm doing something wrong. And I know for a fact that I'm not. And I'm learning now that there are so many people that I allow to just come and go as they please. I'm to blame for that. I am absolutely to blame. I created those monsters. But now that I'm in a space to where I can say, no, because you did this, A, B, and C to me, I'm not dealing with that. Or because I want to match your energy, you don't like that. Well, guess what? You treat people how you want to be treated. We learned that when we were kids. And nobody's going to make me feel bad for setting standards and boundaries in my life after I have let them walk over me so many times. So do not apologize. Don't apologize for your boundaries. Don't apologize for the changes that you're making in your life, because at the end of the day, it's your life and you're the only person that have to live it.
It trips me out when people say they never heard of conversational boundaries. Like, you need conversational boundaries. Let me help you understand this a little bit more. Sometimes we don't have the emotional or the mental capacity to hold conversations with people. Sometimes we don't have the capacity to absorb other people's emotional burdens. Sometimes we cannot do the emotional labor because we have life going on. We're stressed out. We already have our own personal burdens. Or maybe we're just exhausted of listening to the same thing. So sometimes you have to set this boundary with yourself. When it comes to conversations, you got to be willing to communicate your comfort levels. If you know that you're not comfortable having a certain type of conversation, or you're not comfortable hearing the same thing, don't have the conversation. It is absolutely okay for you to let a person know that certain topics of conversations make me uncomfortable. It's also absolutely okay to let people know that I need some space. The reason why sometimes we don't tell people is because our catastrophic thinking turns on and we assume the worst out of a situation. We assume that things are just going to go horrible. The worst than worst case possible scenario is going to happen. Sometimes you have to assume the best. And if the best doesn't play out, oh well. Some things you simply can't control. Relinquish that need to be in control of certain things. If you can no longer be a person's emotional dumping ground, let them know you can't always play unpaid therapist, sugar. They may be upset. They may leave. They may call you out your name. They may have an outburst. Shoot, they may even set a boundary against the boundary that you create. Let them. Okay, you can't control that. That right there is enough for you to see how they feel, or if their responses don't align with where you are trying to go in life. Too many people personalize these situations, so when you set a boundary, they take it as a personal attack, and guess what? You cannot control that. That is how they view themselves. There is something within them that is making them react and respond in a way that they are, and you can't do anything about that. It's not like you're setting a boundary to disrespect them. I hope you're not setting a boundary to disrespect them, because if that's the case, then that's a harsh boundary and that's unhealthy. But in order for you to show up for yourself and for other people, you have to be your most sane self. I hope this gives you all something to work with. I wish you all the best, happy healing, and happy healthy relationships. Bye, babies.
Okay, y'all, this topic was so big to me because this is something that I struggled with for a very long time. I've spoken about it in other videos, but I am a child abuse survivor, and I have in the past been in either emotionally or physically abusive relationships, and in that I lost my voice for a while. And even when I found my voice, or I knew like, okay, it's okay for me to speak up for myself, I had to exercise that muscle, because I felt like every time I did speak up for myself, that it wasn't safe, or I was going to put myself in danger, right? And I had gotten to a point where I had just got so sick and tired of being mistreated, and that I got to a point where I was like, you know what, I'm going to stand up for me regardless of whatever the consequences are. Like, I even tell like my clients now, like I have a saying that I'm going to say what I need to say, and I can deal with however that made you feel afterwards, because I spent so much time trying to tiptoe around or be careful with my words or try not to upset those around me. But I had to come to the harsh realization that the people around me didn't care how they were affecting me, right? And so one of my favorite books that I read was called Set Boundaries, Create Peace. And the lady's name is Tidra, what is her last name? Tidra Glover Tawwab. And I bought the audiobook on like Apple Books, and I also have the hard copy, but I am the hairstylist that has these kind of talks with my clients, and I end up giving my books away. So I always make sure I buy like the audiobook, right? What I love about this book, and it's also written by Black women, but what I love about this book is she breaks down where some of these systems come from, because some of us have a hard time with setting boundaries because of the toxic family systems that we come from as well. And you guys know that in a lot of minority families, speaking up for yourself is like a sign of disrespect, which we all understand and realize now is just a way to try to control us. But I'll save that for another video. But one of the things that she speaks about is how what that looks like. Like, so what pretty much when you lack boundaries, how that manifests internally, right? So one of the things is that you're always overwhelmed. So you literally like just you want to run away. Like you look up and you just think, oh my God, there's just so much going on, and then this person's asking me this and this person's asking me that, and my job wants me to do this and my job wants me to do that, and you're literally ready to pull your hair out because you're like, oh my God, I'm one person. Like, one of the things that I used to say all the time was, I did not ask for this Superwoman cape. I did not ask to be Superwoman, right? Like, why is everything on me? There's so much on my shoulders, and then everybody's asking more things of me, and then they get upset when I can't complete it all, right? But I realized that that's on me, because it's okay to say no. It's okay to say because I don't want to. It's okay to say I don't have the capacity for that right now. I'm sorry. And really, without the I'm sorry, I'm working on not saying the I'm sorry part of it, right? Part of that also is you find yourself really resentful. Like you will resent just any and everything. You'll be upset. You'll be mad at things and don't even know why. You're just angry, or you're just at your wit's end. And a lot of that is because you're just taking on everything, and you're just saying okay to everything, even when you know like this is too much for me. You avoid people, like, or certain people. Like I spoke about it before, but one of the hardest people to set a boundary with was my mother. And so a lot of the times, like, my phone would ring, and I love my mom, but my phone would ring and I would just be exhausted. I'd be like, oh my God, she's probably going to tell me that I need to do this and that, whatever. And she gets mad at times, but now I will flat out just say no. Or I'll say I don't want to. Like recently, so her birthday was August 29th. and she had asked me to set up to throw a picnic for her. But y'all, she asked me like a month and some change before, and I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And she went around it a million and one ways. She was like, well, I want Nick to barbecue, and I want this, and I want that, and I was just like, I'm exhausted thinking about it. And she's like, well, I'm your mom, and I don't ask for this, and this, and I was just like, I don't want to. I don't want to do it. And the thought of it was exhausting, and I was just like, bro, like, we just had a picnic for our 4 kids. I'm getting these kids ready for school. They still have YMCA during the summer. I'm still working. I'm in school myself. Like, that's just too much for me right now. Like, no. And my mom is one person, and all she's responsible for is herself. And I was just like, no, this is too much. And then, then it was like, oh, well, invite everybody that came to the last one. And, like, how much did you spend on this and that? And I'm just like, oh my God, like, no, no. And so it literally got to a point where, like, if I even thought that that's what she was calling me about, I didn't want to answer my phone. But it took me so long to even get to a point of setting that boundary and not feeling bad about it. And one of the things that I've spoken on in other videos is that sometimes when you set these boundaries, you have to understand that the people around you are so used to you acquiescing to any and everything that they ask of you that it is going to throw them off the first time you say no. And it's going to make you feel like the bad guy the first time that you say no. And that's okay. That's normal. That's what's supposed to happen. I always say that's your sign that that boundary is working, right? The way that I teach it to my children at home is like, for every action, right, there's a consequence. So when you set a boundary, you have to let people know that, hey, so I'm not okay with this and that. And if you do this in order to take care of me, I'm going to do this. So I'll give you an example. So one day, my oldest son and my youngest daughter were sitting in the middle of the floor and they were playing. And for some reason, she kept hitting him. And he kept telling her, like, Ayana, stop hitting me, stop hitting me, stop hitting me. And she wouldn't stop. And so he told her, he said, listen, if you hit me again, I'm going to stop playing with you. Well, she's the baby and she's used to batting them pretty eyelashes, and everybody in the house does what she wants them to do, right? So she did it again. And he said, that's it, I'm done. And he got up and he went to the next room. And of course, she was all sad and whatnot. And he walked back in the living room and he told her, I told you that if you hit me again, I wasn't going to play with you anymore. And I told him, I said, way to set a boundary, Stink. He did not raise his voice at his sister. He did not, talk to her aggressively. He was very calm in his tone. And she realized in that moment that he wasn't playing with her. If you do this to me in order to take care of me, I'm going to do this. Another thing that you'll realize is that you will literally be mentally exhausted. Like, you will give yourself anxiety. You will literally give yourself burnout. For myself, one of the things that I have to start doing is I am a serial workaholic, right? And so anytime like money gets low or money gets funny, I'll start adding extra days to my calendar. But then when people book those days, I get frustrated, right? Like, it's like, oh, thank you for the money, but oh, I really actually have to go to work now, right? And so I've even had to set boundaries with myself and say, listen, I don't care how funny the money gets, you still deserve an off day. So the boundary that I set with myself was, no matter what is going on, I'm going to work the days that I already have scheduled, so my set schedule that I have for myself, and I'm going to better budget my money. Because if I open these books, yes, clients are going to show up, and I'm gonna do my job, right? Like, I don't cancel on my clients or anything like that. But at the same time, you're burnt out because you didn't manage your money better. You're burnt out because you're working all these extra days when you have these designated off days for a reason. So sometimes setting those boundaries is with yourself. Another thing is, you can relate this to like business, you can relate this to work, whatever the case is. Like, I consider them like more public relationships, right? So a lot of the times we will run into people and they act like they're so excited to get to know us. And then later on, when there is some sort of falling out, they throw those things back in your face. I know this because I've gone through it, right? So one of the ways that I set boundaries in in business is I will tell you what's necessary, but you don't get any more than that, right? So let me give you guys a scenario of how this works. So for instance, I remember back in the day, I had a client and she was really sweet, but she just asked too many personal questions for me. So I remember one morning I was running late, dropping my oldest off, and well, it was just him at the time, but I was dropping him off to school, and I did text her and I said, hey, I'm dropping my son off to daycare. I'm running about 10 minutes late, but I want you to know that I am on my way. And she was like, oh, okay, no worries. I'm running behind too. I'll see you when you get there. And I was like, okay, cool. So I get there. I thanked her for waiting for me. I get her started. And she was like, oh, well, where does your baby go to school at? And I was just like, huh? Because it threw me off. And she was like, well, where does your baby go to school at? And I was just like, I'm not really comfortable answering that question, but he's not far. And she was like, oh, well, I know that you don't live in LA, so I was just wondering because, you know, you said you were late. And I said, well, there's traffic in LA, so I could have been late whether I dropped him off in Fontana or I dropped him off here. But I'm not really comfortable answering personal questions, especially about my child. And she was like, oh, you know, I apologize. I didn't mean any harm. And I told her, I said, I didn't take it that way. But I'm just letting you know that that's not something that I'm comfortable with. And she was like, oh, okay, you know, I understand, my bad. And so I continued to do her hair. And then she asked me, well, what's your relationship between, like, what's the relationship like with your baby daddy and your boyfriend? And I was like, what? And she was like, oh, no, because, you know, I'm married with kids too, and my baby daddy is just so difficult to deal with. And I was just like, well, first and foremost, I don't have a baby daddy. I said, and second of all, I don't have a boyfriend. I have a husband. I said, but once again, I'm not comfortable answering personal questions. Like, we can talk about anything. We can talk about your hair. We can talk about the weather. We can talk about the new design in the shop. We can watch a movie, but my personal life is off limits. And I think that she was trying to tell me about her own situation because some people, like, it's like a trauma bond, right? Like, oh, I got an ain't shit baby daddy, so I hope you got one too so we can bond. No, we're not doing that. I've had my own friends cross me and throw, you know, things in my face that have happened to me in the past. Or I've had ex-boyfriends or just family members, period. Like, my mom used to do it. My dad used to do it. You know, people take those things that they know about you and they use those to hurt you. Why would I give you the ammo? And I'm here to do your hair. I'm not here to tell you about my personal life. I don't care if these niggas was duking it outside. That's not your business. You know what I mean? And so even now, like, I'm not sure. Okay, so first and foremost, I am very, 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 very funny about my personal life. Like, I will talk to clients about things that, like, yes, we can relate on, but it doesn't have to go super deep. Like, you don't need to know that on June 5th, 2017, me and him had an argument about XYZ. Like, it's not that serious. You know what I mean? But what a question I get asked a lot is what school my children go to. And it's very weird to me. And it may just be a genuine question, but it's not a question that I ask people unless they're really close, like friends. And then I wouldn't have to ask because I know already. You know what I mean? So I get asked that a lot, and I just say, oh, down the street. Because I get tired of every other day saying, oh, yeah, I'm not really comfortable with that. Because some people, and let me say this. To some people, for whatever reason they have, when you don't want to answer something to them, it feels like rejection. That is not your problem. Because they need to question what their actual intentions are. Because I look at it like this. If you were a friend of mine, you would already know where my children go to school. And if you needed to use my address for your children to go to the same school, all you do is ask. Right? Not to mention a lot of these schools, they do like permits and stuff. So you don't even need my address. But I digress. So I just like give a very vague answer, and I'd be like, oh, down the street. Because the city that I live in, there's like 9 elementary schools in the district, and the city is very small. So good luck. You know what I mean? So that's just always, I'm very funny when it comes to my children. Like, I don't even like people calling my kids by their government names on the internet. Everybody has a nickname, use their nickname. You know what I mean? So that is a way to set a boundary. Another thing is, when someone spoke about, you know, setting boundaries in your relationship, that was hard for me as well. I have the video about how I used to be a pick-me, and part of me being a pick-me, I call it my sickness, and my sickness was I'd sit there with my feelings hurt because I didn't want to speak up and say, hey, I don't like that. You know what I mean? And I will say that in the beginning of my relationship, when I did start to speak up for myself, it did cause a little bit of turmoil. until, like, you know, he had to realize as well, like, yeah, I'm not cool with that. And one of the young ladies in the videos, it made sense when she said, like, people will set boundaries with you and they'll stick to those boundaries, but you're not sticking to your own boundaries. So it's like if a man, for instance, says, I don't want to date a woman with kids, and you go and date this man, and then you tell him later after y'all got close, I got kids, and then you're surprised when he left. Well, that was a no for him. Okay, it's the same thing for you. You have got to figure out what your non-negotiables are and add tax. You don't owe it to anybody to suffer for them. You don't owe it to anybody to be uncomfortable for them. And that is something that I'm so big on, because I spent so much of my life being uncomfortable for other people's comfort, and I was still being disrespected. The only way to have genuine peace in your life is to say, hey, I'm not cool with this, I'm not doing this, and then mean what you say when you say that, and stand on it. Because the people that truly love you and care about you, they will respect that and they will adjust. Those that don't, they're not your people. I tell my kids this all the time. We don't subscribe to that, oh, if somebody's being mean to you, they like you. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. If someone is not being respectful to you, that ain't your person. And I'm teaching my babies this young. Oh, mommy, this kid on the playground was being mean to me and I just wanted to play with them. Okay, well then that ain't your friend. Go find another friend. There's 800 other kids on the playground. Find another kid to play with. Because when you look desperate, people treat you as such. When you don't have boundaries and self-care for yourself, people are going to deal with you and treat you however, because you treat you however. That is why a lot of the time when you set boundaries for yourself, a lot of people disappear. And that's okay. What I started to do with myself is when something happens that I don't like, if I am not able to address it right then and there, I address it within myself. Okay, what just happened? How did that make me feel? How can I take care of myself for the next time? How do I prevent it from being a next time? If it's somebody I truly care about, then I'll tell them, hey, you know what? When XYZ happened, that really bothered me, and I need to talk to you about it. If they brush me off, you're not my person. You don't give a shit about me. If you tell me I'm too sensitive, you're not my person. You don't care. A lot of people, once they can't benefit off of you anymore, they don't want to be bothered with you anyway. Let them people go. Let the trash take itself out. But anyways, y'all, that's what I have for you guys today. Let me know in the comments, what you guys think about this video, ways that you've learned to set boundaries for yourself. Let's help each other out in the comments. I appreciate you guys as always, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye.